Hey, y'all, you know what time it is. Whoa! Okay, so we're gonna try that again. Ah! We're gonna try that again. Hi, y'all. Woo! Get into it! It's like that moment when you throw a ball up and it doesn't come back down immediately. That means usually either it's stuck or it's lost somewhere. And the book didn't come back down. It got caught up on the top shelf of my bookshelf. Oh, goodness. Hi, y'all. Welcome to Storytime with Chris. We like to have fun here. We are goofy. We are, in the words of the Cheshire Cat, oh, we're all mad here. And the mome rats out great. Okay, that's enough. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. That's all I want to say. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. Hi, my friend. Thank you for watching. Now, I do not own the music that is being played in the background. We are back with Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Wide Window. And, I'm sorry, I got a case of the giggles. So, which reminds me of a book I'm eventually going to read on Storytime. Wayside School. If anybody remembers that series of books, it's actually written by the same person who wrote the book Holes, which we will definitely read. Probably October, that'll be our book, Holes. Maybe September. Yeah, September is more appropriate. Because Halloween time, we read the Halloween Tree every year. And then I'm going to read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for the earlier parts of October. So we'll get to that eventually. But Louis Sachar is the author. And let me tell you something. Wayside School, Sideways Stories from Wayside School, Wayside School is Falling Down, and then Wayside School is Getting Weirder are all three books of an incredibly hilarious set of characters and incidences that I have stuck with me since I was a kid. And I'm talking from the age of 6 and 7. Very young. Listening to it in an audiobook with my cousins. Like, it on cassette, okay? I'm showing my age. It's an amazing set of books. We will get around to reading them. We'll probably start with the first, obviously. But Wayside School is Falling Down is my favorite one out of the three. And Louis Sachar is an amazing author. So we will get around to reading his books eventually. And then, also, we're going to read some Gary Soto in the fall. If you don't know who Gary Soto is, you have not lived. I'm going to just tell you that. But you didn't come to hear me blather. And to hear me read a story. And we're back. After Aunt Josephine's house got blown off the edge of the cliff from the hurricane winds, the Baudelaires are left outside because they decoded Aunt Josephine's message. And they're going to try to find her at Curdled Cave. So we'll see what happens. Hold on, because I'm not satisfied with my glasses right now. I just need to get a new eyeglass wipe. I need to get new glasses while I'm playing. Okay. Alright, that's better. Chapter 9. The United States Postal Service has a motto. The motto is, neither rain nor sleet nor driving snow shall halt the delivery of the mails. All this means is that even when the weather is nasty and your mail person wants to stay inside and enjoy a cup of hot cocoa, he or she has to bundle up and go out and deliver your mail anyway. The United States Postal Service does not think that icy storms should interfere with its duties. The Baudelaire orphans were distressed to learn that the fickle fairy had no such policy. Violet, Klaus, and Sunny had made their way down the hill with much difficulty. The storm was rising, and the children could tell that the wind and the rain wanted nothing more than to grab them and throw them into the raging waters of Lake Lachrymose. Violet and Sunny hadn't the time to grab their coats as they escaped the house, so all three children took turns wearing Klaus's coat as they stumbled along the flooding road. Once or twice a car drove by, and the Baudelaires had to scurry into the muddy bushes and hide in case Captain Sham was coming to retrieve them. When they finally reached Damascus Dock, their teeth were chattering and their feet were so cold they could scarcely feel their toes. At the side of the closed sign, in the window of the Fickle Fairy ticket booth, was just about more than they could stand. "It's closed," Klaus cried, his voice rising with despair, and in order to be heard over Hurricane Herman. How we get to Curdle Cave now? We'll have to wait until it opens, Violet replied. But it won't open until the storm is past, Klaus pointed out, and by then Captain Sham will find us and take us far away. We have to get to Aunt Josephine as soon as possible. I don't know how we can, Violet said, shivering. The atlas says that the cave is all the way across the lake, and we can't swim all that way in this weather. Intro! Sunny shrieked, which meant something along the lines of, and we don't have enough time to walk around the lake either. There must be other boats on this lake, Cloud said. Besides the ferry, motor boats or fishing boats or... He trailed off. And his eyes met those of his sisters. All three orphans were thinking of the same thing. Or sailboats. Sorry, something had passed by. Sorry about that. Okay. Or sailboats, Violet finished for him. Captain Sham's sailboat rentals. He said it was on Damascus Dock. The Baudelaires stood under the awning of the ticket booth and looked down at the far end of the deserted dock, where they could see a metal gate that was very tall and had glistening spikes on the top of it. Hanging over the metal gate was a sign with some words they couldn't read, and next to the sign there was a small shack scarcely visible in the rain. With the flickering light in the window, the children looked at it with dread in their hearts. Walking into Captain Sham's sailboat rentals in order to find out Josephine would feel like walking into a lion's den in order to escape from a lion. Can't go there, Klaus said. We have to, Violet said. We know Captain Sham isn't there, because he's either on his way to Aunt Josephine's house or still at the Anxious Cloud. But whoever is there, Klaus said, pointing to the flickering light, won't let us rent a sailboat. They won't know we're the Baudelaires, Violet replied. We'll tell whoever it is that we're the Jones children and that we want to go for a sail. In the middle of a hurricane? Klaus replied. They won't believe that. They'll have to, Violet said resolutely, a word which here means as if she believed it, even though she wasn't so sure. And she led her siblings toward the shack. Klaus clasped the atlas close to his chest, and Sunny, whose turn it was for Klaus's coat, clutched it around herself, and soon the Baudelaires were shivering underneath the sign that read, Captain Sham's Sailboat Rentals. Every boat has its own sail. But the tall metal gate was locked up tight, and the Baudelaires paused there, anxious about going inside the shack. Let's take a look, Klaus whispered, pointing to a window, but it was too high for him or Sunny to use. Standing on tiptoe, Violet peered into the window of the shack, and with one glance she knew that there was no way they could rent a sailboat. The shack was very small, with only room for a small desk and a single light bulb which was giving off the flickering light. But at the desk, asleep in a chair, was a person so massive that it looked like an enormous blob was in the shack, snoring away with a bottle of beer in one hand and a ring of keys in the other. As the person snored, the bottle shook, the keys jangled, and the door of the shack creaked open an inch or two. But although those noises were quite spooky, they weren't what frightened Violet. What frightened Violet was that you couldn't tell if this person was a man or a woman. There aren't very many people like that in the world, and Violet knew which one this was. Perhaps you have forgotten about Count Olaf's evil comrades, but the Baudelaires had seen them in the flesh, lots of flesh, in this comrade's case, and remembered all of them in gruesome detail. These people were crude, and they were sneaky, and they did whatever Count Olaf, or in this case Captain Sham, told them to do. And the orphans never knew when they would turn up, and now when it turned up right there in the shack, dangerous, treacherous, and snoring. Violet's face must have shown her disappointment, because as soon as she took a look, Klaus asked, What's wrong? I mean, besides Hurricane Herman and Aunt Josephine faking her own death, and Captain Sham coming after us and everything. One of Count Olaf's comrades is in the shack, Violet said. Which one? Klaus asked. The one who looks like neither a man nor a woman, Violet replied. Klaus shuddered. That's the scariest one. I disagree, Violet said. I think the bald one is scariest. Vash! Sunny whispered. Oh, excuse me. Vash! Sunny whispered, which probably meant, let's discuss this at another time. Did he or she see you? Klaus asked. No, Violet said. They're asleep. But they're holding a ring of keys. We'll need them, I bet, to unlock the gate and set a sailing boat. You mean we're gonna steal a sailboat? Klaus asked. We have no choice, Violet said. Stealing, of course, is a crime, and a very impolite thing to do, but like most impolite things, it is excusable under certain circumstances. Stealing is not excusable if, for instance, you're in a museum and you decide that a certain painting would look better in your house, and you simply grab the painting and take it there. But if you are very, very hungry and you had no way of obtaining the money, it might be excusable to grab the painting, take it to your house, and eat it. We have to get to Curdle Cave as quickly as possible, Violet continued, and the only way we can do that is to steal a sailboat. I know that, Klaus said, but how are we going to get the keys? I don't know, Violet admitted. The door of the shack is creaky, and I'm afraid if we open it any wider, we'll wake them up. You could crawl through the window, Klaus said, by standing on my shoulders. Sonny could keep watch. Where is Sonny? Violet asked nervously. Violet and Klaus looked down at the ground and saw Klaus's coat sitting alone in a little heap. They looked down the dock, but only saw the fickle fairy ticket booth and the foamy waters of the lake darkening in the gloom of the late afternoon. She's gone, Klaus cried, but Violet put a finger to her lips and stood on tiptoe to look at the window again. Sonny was crawling through the open door of the shack, flattening her little body enough so as not to open the door any wider. She's inside, Violet murmured. In the shack, Klaus said in a horrified gasp. Oh no, we have to stop her. She's crawling very slowly toward that person, Violet said, afraid even to blink. We promised our parents we'd take care of her, Klaus said. We can't let her do this. She's reaching toward the keyring, Violet said breathlessly. She's gently prying it loose from the person's hand. Don't tell me any more, Klaus said, as a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky. No, do tell me. What is happening? She has the keys, Violet said. She's putting them in her mouth to hold them. She's crawling back toward the door. She's flattening herself and crawling through. She's made it, Klaus said in amazement. Sonny came crawling triumphantly toward the orphans, the keys in her mouth. Violet, she made it, Klaus said, giving Sonny a hug as a huge boom of thunder echoed across the sky. Violet smiled down at Sonny, but stopped smiling when she looked back into the shack. The thunder had awoken Count Olaf's comrade, and Violet watched in dismay as the person looked at his empty hand where the keyring had been, and then down on the floor where Sonny had left little crawl prints of rainwater, and up to the window, right into Violet's eyes. She's awake, Violet shrieked. He's awake! It's awake! Hurry, Klaus! Open the gate and I'll try to distract them. Without another word, Klaus took the key ring from Sonny's mouth and hurried to the tall metal gate. There were 3 keys on the ring, a skinny one, a thick one, and one with teeth as jagged as the glistening spikes hanging over the children. He put the atlas down on the ground and began to try the skinny key in the lock, just as Count Olaf's comrade came lumbering out of the shack. Her heart in her throat, Violet stood in front of the creature and gave it a fake smile. Good afternoon, she said, not knowing whether to add sir or madam. I seem to have forgotten lost on this dock. Could you tell me the way to the Fickle Fairy? Count Olaf's comrade did not answer, but kept shuffling toward the orphans. The skinny key fit into the lock but didn't budge, and Klaus tried the thick one. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you tell me? Without a word, the mountainous person grabbed Violet by the hair, and with one swing of their arm lifted her up over its smelly shoulder the way you might carry a backpack. Klaus couldn't get the thick key to fit in the lock and tried the jagged one, just as the person scooped up Sonny with its other hand and held her up, the way you might hold an ice cream cone. Klaus! Violet screamed. Klaus! The jagged key wouldn't fit in the lock either. Klaus, in frustration, shook the metal gate. Violet was kicking the creature from behind, and Sonny was biting its wrist, but the person was as Okay, so I've seen this word earlier yesterday, and it's a tongue twister, so bear with me. Borbdignian, okay. Borbdignian. Borbdignian, a word which here means unbelievably husky. that the children were causing it minimal pain, a phrase which here means no pain at all. Count Olaf's comrade lumbered toward Klaus, holding the other two orphans in its grasp. In desperation, Klaus tried the skinny key again to lock, and to his surprise and relief, it turned and the tall metal gate swung open. Just a few feet away were 6 sailboats tied to the end of the dock with thick rope, sailboats that could take them to Aunt Josephine. But Klaus was too late. He felt something grab the back of his shirt, and he was lifted up in the air. Something slimy began running down his back, and Klaus realized with horror that the person was holding him in her mouth. "Put me down!" Klaus screamed. "Put me down! Put me down! Put me down!" Violet screamed. "Pudarish! Pudarish!" Sunny shrieked. But the lumbering creature had no concern for the wishes of the Baudelaire orphans. With great sloppy steps, it turned itself around and began to carry the youngsters back toward the shack. The children heard the gloppy sound of its chubby feet sloshing through the rain. But then, instead of there was a skittle-watt as the person stepped on Aunt Josephine's atlas, which slipped from under its feet. Count Olaf's comrade waved his arms to keep its balance, dropping Violet and Sunny, and then fell to the ground, opening its mouth in surprise and dropping Klaus. The orphans, being reasonably good physical shape, got to their feet much quickly than their despicable creature, and ran through the open gate to the nearest sailboat. The creature struggled to right itself and chase them, but Sunny had already bitten the rope that tied the boat to the dock. By the time the creature reached the spiky metal gate, the orphans were already on the stormy waters of Lake Lachrymos. In the dim light of the late afternoon, Klaus wiped the grime of the creature's foot off the cover of the atlas and began to read it. Aunt Josephine's book of maps had saved them once in showing them the location of Curdle Cave, and now it had saved them again. And that is where we will end for tonight. And we are on chapter 10 next time we meet, so that means we have 10. So we only have 4 chapters left when next we meet. So, as always, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.